What's up, guys? Will and Chris back for another Weekly Whale episode where we spend our lives on crypto Twitter so that you guys don't have to. We had a huge week in the crypto space with the Ethereum ETF finally launching yesterday at time of recording. Now, our price action has not been um, quite as bullish as you would think it is, given the ETF is launched. So, without further ado, let's pull up the chart and start taking a look. I think I was looking at flow data late last night because for some reason BlackRock's data did not come in, but it was interesting to me to see not only did I think I hit or we hit rather about 1 billion in volume across all of the newly trading trusts. The interesting thing was, one, people didn't estimate that we were going to have much volume on these ETH ETFs. I think sentiment was running pretty low heading into this launch. But two, we had like, what, 450? Yeah, there it is. 458 million in outflows from the Grayscale ETH Trust, which is not a small amount of money. I think that was much higher than I had personally expected in terms of the dollar amount. But one interesting data point there is in terms of its percentage to the overall AUM of the Grayscale Trust. It was actually smaller than what we saw when the Bitcoin ETFs launched with GBTC. So that's kind of an interesting move. I'm not entirely sure why that may have been the case. They did open up a new trust for ETH called the Mini Trust, which has lower fees versus the 2.5% they've been charging for ETH customers for the last couple of years now. So
Yep.
maybe flows to that helped some of the selling pressure. But yeah, just curious, Chris, what did you think of the data? What do you think of the flows? What do you think of the price action? What's going on?
Price action's bad, feels bad, all of that. But I think there's no reason to be pessimistic now, in my opinion. I think again, strong showing for the first day. I think ultimately flows are better than everyone thought. And it's going to be choppy in the beginning. It always is. The idea that this launches and just goes straight nuclear is not a thing. Uh, so many expectations built around. There's so much like bearish sentiment, but also positive sentiment. It's going to kind of get mixed up and lost in it. And so like, that's kind of what it is. It's just people fighting on both sides and things playing out. And so I don't expect anything to go crazy. Look, the move that was done here was done a while ago already, right? Just like with BTC, like these things are always, they happened far before. And by the time it happens, it's kind of like already priced in at that point. And then you're betting on the future, right? And so now we're kind of taking in the information, seeing where it goes. But look, I think strong day one, right? Looks good. We still have, Barry on the other side continually selling and, screwing us on that side. But at some point he'll run out of coins to sell and things will go up. So, again, I think tracking about what we thought, it's not the sort of, you know, I think in a few weeks when things do start to run, which I do think they will, right? We're going to look back and be like, oh, we were all kind of wondering about this moment and what was happening. We're just realizing this just takes time and it's going to move up. And so I think it's all good and we're kind of, right where we need to be. So in other words, look,
Yeah, I
BTC,
mean,
again, at a nice price, right? We're up at 55 back here. This looks great, right? ETH also looks good. It looks a little bit less good than this, but still, it's still very solid and strong. Sol, however, though, has been going nuclear. Much to I'm sure Will's chagrin. But yeah, like it's been overall. I think we're still trending in a good environment. Like these numbers are still high. You know,
yeah,
and the fact that we're bearish here is, in my opinion, a good thing. Or people are like mixed on the fence is a good thing, right? It just like
mhm.
shows that we've sort of reset our numbers to a higher place, and we kind of expect a lot more, which is a good thing in general for just general sentiment. But yeah,
Yeah,
what do you think about?
agreed. I think I what the net flows overall were about plus 100 million for the ETH
Yes, I
ETFs
think it's a little
across
bit
the
over
board,
100.
including Grayscale.
Yep,
Like that's not
107 mil.
only beating estimates, but those are damn good numbers. I think I was listening into the Bitwise president who they run one of the larger BTC and now ETH ETFs. I believe he said that puts it in the top six for ETFs in terms of like day one inflows. So, people are trying to spin this as some bearish thing when if you zoom out and look at the rest of the traditional market that we're now joining, like this was a crazy launch. And again, to Chris's point, we beat a lot of people's estimates, including my own. I was trying to be conservative, but look, if we can keep up inflows like this over the next couple weeks, it's going to have a very positive effect on the price. I think ETH has been trading probably lower than it should have for the last year or so. And inflows like this, combined with us getting rid of these ridiculous supply overhangs that we've had on the industry for decades, is a hugely bullish event. We're basically in the stage right now where crypto natives and these forced seller collapsed funds, etc., are transferring their coins to either institutions or the people buying the ETFs. So not crypto natives, which in my opinion is a good thing. I One thing I did notice though is if you take a look at the ETH price action over the last like 36 hours or so, we are in like the tightest little zigzag range, which I think is indicative of our new market maker overlord stepping into the market. I I hope we don't end up just trading like TradFi does, where you have all these high frequency firms going at each other, keeping us in the same little tight range. But it kind of looks like it right now. I'm curious to see how that develops. But yeah, look, overall, I wasn't expecting a big pop on day one. In fact, I'm not super surprised to see us trading lower after the first 2 days, despite good inflows, because I think to Chris's point, like the trade for this in terms of front running it was done months ago. We're now seeing the people who were trading for that purpose or had bought for that purpose, they're unwinding their positions on top of all
Yep.
the forced sellers. So yeah, it's going to take some time, but I don't think it's going to be very much time. I think we probably have about a week or two until we start seeing real pops in the market. I'm
Yep.
still very actively bidding ETH betas, all of that good stuff. So
Yep.
this data has honestly only been encouraging for me. We also saw an interesting flip. Um, I want to say it was Fidelity's Trust, where they saw fairly significant outflows from their Bitcoin ETF into their own ETH ETF, which I thought
Oh, is
was
that right?
interesting because
Huh.
that's, of course, indicative of people rebalancing their portfolios to not just be Bitcoin, but to instead also include ETH. So that's very encouraging to see. I don't know how much of that is related to, I guess they have like a 70-30 trust offering, so some of that may be automatic rebalancing, but that's exciting to see for sure, and it's what I
Interesting.
expected to
Nice.
happen as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, look, I think the question, I think, in going into this flow is like, do people give a shit about ETH, from an institutional standpoint, right? Or is it mostly BTC, right? And I was a little bit, I think even last week we said I was a little bit hesitant to go too hard into that because it's just hard. It's just a newer thing, whereas Bitcoin is just a little bit more, it's more static asset, so easier to understand. But it turns out, I think people see ETH as, probably this is probably understanding or like stating it too simply as like sort of BTC light, at least in terms of where it can go price action wise. And so, look, BTC's here, it's going to go, it's a thing, but like, look, I'm sure ETH has more room to grow, so we can buy into there. So people are balancing. I love it. It's probably leading into your point around, you know, transferring some of the BTC over to ETH. So anyway,
Yeah,
all
I
good
mean,
news.
I think I kind of look at Ethereum as more of an institutional asset than Bitcoin is. I think it's a harder sell to your average everyday customer or trader because, Bitcoin's very easy. It has a cap supply, it's a scarce asset, and it's the most secure peer-to-peer monetary system in the world. That's an easy sell to anybody. Ethereum is much more complicated. However, the complexity of it is what enables all these cool upgrades or expected upcoming upgrades to the traditional system, like tokenizing equities or assets in general. So I think, and we've already seen that with Larry Fink pushing the whole tokenization narrative. I think that's very real, and I think it applies way more to these institutions than to like retail at all. So I don't know how that reflects in price action, but I think we've seen it just among crypto natives over the last year. Again, ETH trading lower than I personally think it should be, and a lot of that's just been because your everyday crypto native trader's attentions has been on meme coins on Solana, which one doesn't apply whatsoever to institutions. Further supporting my point, but yeah, I think we just have a new paradigm of buyers in the market now, and we're going to have to readjust how we look at all these coins. I'm
Yep.
interested to see how that plays out.
Totally, totally. But I think even notably, just the sort of general sentiment and vibe right now. I think a few weeks ago it couldn't be more bearish. I feel like people were like, "We're going to zero. This whole thing's fucked.
Yeah,
It's all over," and
Ansem
it
sold.
certainly feels like yeah, exactly. Ansem sold, right? It was a whole thing, right? Because the timeline was very violent, which is usually means people are losing money, and so they're looking for someone to blame. But at least in the recent light, you can kind of look at price. You look at the sort of tone of the conversation, look at general activity, and even like I look at some of my more normie friends coming in and starting to play around with stuff as well. I sort of feel like it does feel like we've kind of begun what we talked about over the second half of this, at least this cycle, which is, we had a violent upswing from January to the first half of the year. We've been consolidating a little bit and sort of, hitting a local top and pulling back a bit, which is a healthy and normal thing. And then it feels like, at least in my perspective, here's your take, Will, that it's turned and now we're kind of beginning to go the other way. And, you're starting to see the sort of like positive catalyst come into play. We've got the election nearby. The Eth ETF is coming into here. We're beginning to talk about crypto a lot. Trump is going to Nashville, right, this week. We've got, inbound talks of Gensler resigning and Powell and rate cuts. And so it feels like the beginning of an avalanche of narratives that we've been talking about for a while, which should, I think has been changing people's sentiment and sort of like repricing things a little bit. But yeah, I'm curious, like, what do you think where we are in the cycle generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've had for the last 2 months or so has been the summer trap that we get every year. And I think to your point, like that makes a lot of traders lose money, especially leverage traders who are often the most vocal on crypto Twitter. So I think that has factored a lot into kind of the overall sentiment. And I think we're now getting out of that summer chop range, not only because of the date that we're at towards the end of July now, but we now have both Bitcoin and ETH ETFs live, tons of volume happening, tons of forced selling happening, which to me implies more volatility. So one, I think we'll kind of lose that negative sentiment pressure, so to speak, from the traders who have been getting chopped up. But I also think you're totally right that it seems like from my conversations with my own normie friends who are now interested in crypto again, it feels like we're starting to get that next wave of participants. And you can see it in the market data too. We're not really getting big on-chain flows from new normies entering, but we are getting big ETF flows, which is kind of the first domino in the sack. So I think, yeah, no, I think you're right. We're flipping sentiment for sure. We're right on the fence right now with ETH sentiment is still quite low among crypto Twitter, which, again, all of these people, myself included, have been spending most of our time trading meme coins on Solana, so that doesn't surprise me necessarily. But overall,
Totally,
definitely like market feels like it's on the fence. I still remain super bullish as I've been for basically since FTX collapsed. So it hasn't changed my mind really, and it depends on what your time frame is, I guess. But yeah, no, I think we're heading into that second half of the bull market now. That's how I've been positioning
totally.
too.
And maybe shifting gears then, talking about something that you mentioned a few times here, that I'm sure is your favorite topic. Talking about Soul a little bit. Soul's been really strong. I mean, it's gone well. Even on like the red day today, Soul's still green, and generally speaking, it feels like it's been pretty positive, and the moves have been strong every time. And even anecdotally checking my chats and checking behaviors and just looking at deck screener and a bunch of these things, it seems like Soul shitters are back. We're talking about Mew, we're talking about Popcat again, we're talking about Billy, we're talking about all these different things, and so Soul shitter season is definitely here. And there's a couple things to talk about there, but maybe number one, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, Will. On Soul in general and this tweet about Soul performance. And so, yeah, why don't you lead us into this?
Yeah, so again, as I was talking about, everybody's been obsessed with meme coins on Solana. There's a number of reasons why the Solana meme coin ecosystem has popped off, but um, it's been pretty cool, honestly, even as a Solana hater, to see a chain like even come close to rivaling ETH's DEX volume, much less flipping it. So yeah, we can see here that over the last 30 days, the DEX volume on Solana has been higher than that of Ethereum mainnet, which, just to put into perspective, I think ETH's TVL is like 5 to 10 times higher than Solana's. The market cap is roughly the same. So the fact that they are doing this is crazy impressive, I think. Now, I will say, like, the structure of Solana lends itself more to fast transactions. You don't have the same fees. That chart is also not counting ETH layer twos, which, like, kind of the design of ETH mainnet at this point is to abstract out the mainnet operations to its layer twos. If you combine in all of the layer two volumes to ETH mainnet in that chart, I think Solana would still be sitting at like 30% of the overall volume. But still,
Mm,
like I think it's super impressive, and exciting to see people trading a lot. Like I think that's always a good sign. On-chain activity is always a good sign. So yeah, as
totally.
much as like I don't hold Solana, I hold a fairly significant amount of Solana meme coins. So like as long as it's beneficial for my meme coin bags, I'm not going to rag on it too hard. I think on-chain activity is great, and it's definitely been like a positive shining light throughout just horrendous altcoin price action. So that's great too. Yeah,
Yeah,
what are you
totally. I mean,
thinking?
I think you look at a couple things, right? Look again, the sort of ease of use is great, right? Meaning just speed of transactions, the low costs, even simple things. Phantom is just easier to use than MetaMask for many people, right? And that's just the reality, and not having to think about transactions or gas or, truthfully, L2 speeds are pretty good, is the honest answer. And like, I think if I compare both, the experience, in my opinion, isn't too dramatically different. It's more of a UI thing
It's
around
basically
Phantom
the
versus
same.
MetaMask. I think it's the same thing, truthfully, but I get why normies would prefer one or the other. It's a dark screen versus a light screen. It looks more modern. There's some more interactions. It's small things, but it does matter. So I'm not knocking that. And you combine that with things like pump.fun, right? That just like allows you to sort of like catapult shitters out at just an insane speed. That's one thing, right? And so that's happening. And just the general behavior of the Soul audience too, which is different class of people because of the nature of Solana, right? I mean, you just look at any Soul like token. I was looking at this the other day. To one of my friends has been showing this, which has been ripping, honestly, which has been nice. I guess it dumped. But if you like, just looking at like how people trade here, it's just always hilarious to see people buying in the way they buy. These are $50. I saw a 71 cent transaction the other day. These are actually these are larger than I'm used to seeing, truthfully.
Yeah.
Usually on the Soul tape, it's like very, very, very low transaction sizes, and so you have people just spending $5 back and forth, a billion times, right? And that gets you to incredibly high volumes and leaves the TVL low. So I think it's a function of that, right? Having fast transaction speeds, having this kind of experience of sort of retail like meme coin mania leads you to be able to turn the same dollar many more times than maybe ETH, which is a little bit more buy and hold. It's a little bit steadier. It's a little bit more stake it and chill versus anything else, right? So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's again, I think the truth is, right, it's still the primary entry point for most people to crypto, right? And I think people find the cynicism around it quickly and leave, or at least decide to leave, or move on to other things as well, while still keeping things. Who doesn't like? I mean, I like trading shitters as much as the next guy. I know you do too. So trading shitters is fun. But also you realize that can't be, you can't eat fast food all day, right? You will die at some point, right? So you need to diversify your
Yep.
nutrition, or your intake. And so you're going to do other things. And so that's kind of how I think about it. I think it's very positive. It is super impressive though. Like, no lie, right? Solana has just been one of those communities where the community itself sometimes makes you want to fucking kill yourself just because some of the things that get said. And but also like you do love to see how they're sort of like banding together and have their backs against the wall, and like the amount of FUD against Solana was incredible. You know, Post FTX, post Sam, post everything, it was just like this chain is done. It's a VC chain. At the beginning, you had all of that, the overhangs and the supply pressure stuff. They've had a lot going against them. right? It's been more centralized than not, right? Until somewhat recently, where they've been. So I think, look, they've done a great job. I can't knock them, and at the end of the day, I think it's a net positive for all of us in crypto, and so I don't
Yep.
see it as an and or an or. And I do think some of the behaviors in the Solana community, I would love to see slightly modified, but that's how it goes, and you don't control these things. And at the end of the day, I think we should be happy it's here. But I think, like you said, it's the wrong framing because looking at this again, Sol versus ETH, great. ARB is an ETH L2, Base ETH L2, Val Blast is an ETH L2, OP is an ETH L2, right? Even Matic, I mean, I don't really call Matic that's a side chain thing, but still, add these things together, you're looking at what, 30, another 25-ish%, right? And so you're looking at more 55 versus 30. But still, I think I don't want to take anything from the Soul community. They've done an incredible job, and it's positive for everybody, and there's no reason to show them, and
Yeah.
it's good for all of us. So, anyway, I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
maybe on
I
that point,
think,
yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, just I'm kind of somewhat moving topics here.
Yeah, yeah,
But just as an interesting anecdote on the kind of chain selection side, I was talking with my friend who's one of the founders of Moonshot, which is I'm writing an article about it for Beluga right now. So if you're curious, you can read that on our site soon. But um, yeah, I think you got to go to their Twitter. It's use Moonshot. Um,
no, got
yeah,
it.
but basically the idea is Robinhood for meme coins, right? And it's a crazy simple UI. You can onboard with Apple Pay and basically buy any of the um, you can basically buy any of the big Solana meme coins in like a matter of minutes. I've personally used it to onboard, I think, 15 of my friends now who were complete normies before, and now they all hold meme coins. But one interesting thing that the one of the co-founders said to me is not only do people not a lot of the normies that they onboard, not only do they not know what Solana is even after using the app, but they don't care what the chain is either. And I think that's like kind of a concept that a lot of crypto people have talked about for a while, that at a certain point you want to be abstracting away all this ridiculous blockchain involved crypto stuff that we're all comfortable with because the average person is not. But it was interesting to me to see in what I would call like you made the fast food reference, like kind of the deepest like gambling cesspool of crypto, which is Solana meme coins, to have normies getting onboarded to there and not even be thinking about what blockchain am I on, what gas currency do I need? None of that stuff was cool to me, and just confirms kind of what I have been thinking and what other people have been thinking. Eventually, the chain name doesn't really matter. It's just the user experience that matters and the liquidity and all of that.
Yep,
But yeah, just
totally.
another great normie onboarding consumer focused app launched on Solana. They've really been great pushing that stuff.
I think it's funny that it hasn't been done before. This concept, it makes complete sense. Um,
Well, and it's
I'm not
quite
sure why I
simple,
haven't been.
right? Like they use MoonPay for fiat on ramping, and they route orders through Jupiter, I believe. It's
Hmm,
nothing complicated. I don't think there's even a smart contract that they built themselves. And yet it's an incredible app. It works. It's actually faster than Photon, which is one of the big sniping trading terminals. And they pay your gas fees for you, which is cool.
yep. Yeah, Photon's another one here. I mean, I use Photon a lot. Photon's awesome too, but it's a little bit more involved, right? You've
Yep.
got to kind of know what's going on. You can access. I was just trading the other day on this, and like with Photon, you can go deeper. Basically, you can do like a sub 10 mil market cap shitter,
Mm,
because it's just based on contractors, but still, like that's not the. It's just a different audience. And
yep.
so I think it's incredible. Like I've used Moonshot now, from your referral, and it's been great. Like it makes total sense. It's easy. It's incredibly easy to use. Um, Mimicking the Robinhood experience, abstracting away wallets, abstracting away gas, abstracting away everything, the chain, right? You don't have to think of anything. Like at the end of the day, it puts people right where they need. They want to trade shitters, right?
Yep.
And like this is the fastest way that we can see so far. And also it unlocks mobile, right? I think mobile is a huge, huge unlock here. Like the truth is desktop, like most of crypto is desktop today still.
Yep.
And being able to do things on mobile is a huge, huge boon here. And so, yeah, no, I'm hyped about it. I think it's a really, really positive development for crypto in general. So, and I think again, like Sol's done a good job with this. DCAing $5 at a time. It's not something I would ever consider doing, but it's not a thing. But like on Sol, it's a thing, and people are beginning to do it, and at least introduce people to these concepts in this way is still an interesting way to do it. And having the sort of like the shitcoin action here, right, is the initial juice to get people into this stuff. So I think it's
Oh
again,
yeah.
I'm positive on the whole thing. I think Moonshot's going to be an absolute. It's going to go fucking nuclear, just like Pump.Fun went nuclear for launching shitters too. Like I think this meme coin culture around Solana is probably not their chosen, or probably not the was not in the plan, But that's what's come of it. And I think it's a big part of crypto today, speculation and gambling. And if you want to own that, that's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I guess one thing that we didn't really talk about, I think I mentioned the crazy supply overhangs that we've had forever, but maybe we could talk just briefly about Mount Gox,
Yep.
otherwise known as Magic the Gathering Exchange, because I think I've actually had a bunch of normies text me about this over the last week. So for some reason, it's been hitting mainstream news. Um, but just to give a quick background for anybody who doesn't know, Magic the Gathering is still a huge physical trading card game. And way back, I mean, probably what, 10, 12 years ago now, like 20,
Yep.
2011 timeframe. There was
Yep.
this exchange called Mount Gox, MTGOX, which basically facilitated the trading of these cards, which I think some are still going for tens of thousands, if not more, on the secondary market. But you could exchange these using Bitcoin as a medium, which was great. And I think they did a ton of volume. Bitcoin was very cheap back then. But they got exploited twice, and the second time were exploited for, I think, what is valued at present day like 15, 20 billion or something like that. Am I right, Chris?
This it says five left. They've
So
sold a bunch, my understanding,
so
but
they've
yeah,
got
something
yeah
like
they've
that.
got 6 billion left. I believe they distributed something like 4 or 5 billion over the last 24 hours.
Sounds right. Yeah, because at least 2 billion here, another two-ish here. So you're
Yeah.
looking at least, yeah,
Um,
at least four.
so while this was a big hack way back when it happened, since the since the underlying asset that was stolen, Bitcoin, of course, has gone up crazy amounts since then. It's got to be in the top three for like largest hacks ever, I think, in terms of dollar value. But we're finally
Totally.
seeing this Bitcoin get distributed back to the creditors after literally 12 years, I think, which has been a big supply overhang in terms of people being scared that once it gets distributed, people would sell it instantly. This has been the case for basically since the exploit happened. And every now and then we would get rumors that it was finally going to get distributed, and now it finally is. We can see them in the bottom right here on the Arkham dashboard. They're distributing to different exchanges who will then distribute it out to the creditors. Um, the price impact has not been very high, which I think is funny because this has been like one of the biggest black swan events that people have been looking out for Bitcoin forever. And now that it's happening, like people don't really care. So I think it's honestly a bullish event that this is finally happening and we're getting it out of the way, and that it's not having really any kind of negative impact on the price. Maybe it's holding it back, but we're certainly not seeing big dumps. So this
Agreed.
is another encouraging data point. Um,
Totally.
yeah, and I don't know when. I've been hearing that FTX claims are coming soon, but
Soon.
I
That's
don't
what
know
I've
when
been told.
that's
I don't know
happening.
when, but yeah, exactly. Another positive
That's
catalyst
kind of
coming
the
in.
that's
So
kind of the last one that I can think of at least.
totally. No, I think so too. So yeah, no, I mean, look, all of this stuff is bullish, right? And I think we've been bullish the whole time, but I think it's finally coming to fruition. And when you stare at crypto Twitter all day, it does immense amounts of brain damage to you. And so for most of us, the ability to stay focused for more than 5 minutes is a figment of the past. But it is clear that like some of the things we've been talking about are coming to fruition now. And now the question is, how high does it go? Where does it affect? Right? Are we going to see just meme coins come back like last time alongside the majors? Is it just the majors this time because they're borrowing institutional assets and that's where the inflows are? Is it going to are the ETH Dino coins finally going to get a bid? Right? The sort of like more DeFi or utility-based coins from last cycle, right, that are still very much circulation. Are those going to catch a bid? How do the new ones come into play? We'll all find out soon. And so I think that's the question. Does retail come back? It certainly feels like it, at least anecdotally, right? Because people have realized that it's not all a scam, right? And it's just gambling. And you know
Yeah.
what? If you're going to gamble, let's fucking gamble. And
People no
let's.
longer have disgusted looks on their faces when I tell them I work in
Yes,
crypto.
it is really hilarious how that works, because by the time that happens, I get a little. It's like, okay, maybe it's time to get out soon.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but anyway, I think it's all good stuff. And so yeah, I think we watch this action. I think it's still going to be a little bit boring for a while, but I think it's now begin to pay attention. Whereas before it's like, look, take the summer, just chill, do your thing, right? Go to Central Pay or whatever the hell you do, right? Now it is, I think, time to begin paying attention as a lot of this stuff is beginning to hit and maybe slowly get in position if you're not already.
Yep.
I think it's time to figure out where you want to place your bets, how to allocate, and begin to just get in. And instead of thinking too much, especially in this market when things can change quite quickly now, I would just begin to get in and then use that as a way to force yourself to start doing things. So anyway, I think it's all positive stuff. But cool.
Me too.
Well, thanks for listening and stopping by. We'll catch y'all next week.
Catch you next week. Later.